Hello, and welcome to the From Nature to Nurture podcast. I am your host, Danielle, and we are here today with episode 21. Do you feel the shift in the air? Do you feel the sun peeking out a little bit more, the breeze warming up a little bit? Have you seen the little subtle hints of blooms and the green that's starting to pop up? Do you feel a little restless? Do you feel the urge to clean, to move, to start a new project and begin something new? Do you feel lighter or do you feel a little unsettled? The spring equinox is approaching, and I am so excited for it. This time of year is when I really start to feel a shift in my energy. I start to feel more energetic. I feel like I can take on more projects. I really start dreaming about the full, vibrant summer garden, and I start to see all of our little early spring green plant friends that are popping up to help support our bodies. This is a very exciting time of year because spring has the energy of new beginnings and renewal, vitality, and we're coming out of the depths of winter and opening up into this bright new world. Someone recently told me the other day that I do a really good job of acting like I like winter. Because I go outside and I make it look like I'm having fun, and I don't really love or hate winter. I can find joy in the fresh snow and the cozy nights sitting by a candle and reading and making all of the warm, cozy foods like rice pudding and spiced teas and different things like that. But spring and summer are, I guess, and autumn really the times when the plants are more vibrant and more noticeable, or when I am also more happy, because I love I love the energy. I love living in sync with the earth cycles and trying to feel into those subtle changes in energy because we are not separate from these rhythms. We are seasonal beings. We physiologically, like, we align with these times in subtle ways that you don't really notice until you start paying attention to the the correlation between, oh, I'm feeling a little bit more energetic today, the sun has been out more, you know? So these shifts deeply affect us. And so today we're talking about rituals and herbs of the spring equinox. Now, when we start looking at our physical bodies, we will see that our circadian rhythms start to shift. This increase in daylight affects our melatonin and our serotonin. The warmer air encourages movement. Our nervous system senses these longer days, and so we start to shift and align with this solar return of the light coming back and being a little bit more present. The equinox is all about balance, equal balance of light and dark. So if you're feeling energized and also exhausted at the same time, that makes sense. These liminal seasons of the equinox times of spring and of autumn can feel a little disconcerting in our bodies because we may have these really warm 70-degree days, but then we have still these really cold, maybe even down below freezing nights. So this is a common time for people to feel a little confused in their bodies, but you should start to notice a little bit of an increase of energy, maybe a little bit more balance with your mental health because we're coming out of the dark season and we're coming back into the light. So today we are going to discuss different historical celebrations and traditions all across the world that celebrate the spring equinox. We're also going to talk about some of our main plants that we see around this time of year, and then some different practices that you can also incorporate to celebrate this bright, shining time. So let's get into a little bit of the history here. What I find the most fascinating about the spring equinox is how there are a lot of commonalities between different cultures in terms of how they celebrate. It's really interesting. So before I start talking about all of the different festivals, I want to put a quick disclaimer that I am going to try to pronounce all of the words and locations properly, but I don't speak any of these languages, so I could be wrong. I'm also not part of most of these cultures, so this is just from my research. It could be wrong, but let's kick it off here. I'll do my best. So we're going to start with northern India and parts of Asia. You may have heard of Holi, or the Festival of Colors. You've probably seen pictures and videos of thousands of people dancing in the streets, and they are covered in all sorts of different colored powders, these bright fuchsias and yellow and blue, and just the most vibrant expression that you can imagine. It is so beautiful. If you've never looked it up, I highly recommend you do. It's Holi. Um, but the Festival of Colors, it starts on the night of the full moon and marks the end of winter and the beginning of spring. They celebrate the triumph over good and evil, and they also celebrate love. These pigmented powders are thrown, as well as colored waters sprayed at each other to celebrate all of the vitality and the blooms coming back in. The name Holi is derived from Holika, which is a demoness from Hindu mythology, whose burning is commemorated on the night before this main celebration. Holi also celebrates the divine love between Krishna and Radha, his consort, and we have the lighting of the bonfires first, and that is on that night of the full moon, and then the next day is when all of the color throwing begins, and there's so much music and food and dancing, and everyone is together regardless of their class or their status, and it is a huge celebration of spring, of this vital energy. Then we have the Persian New Year. Nowruz is the first day of the Iranian calendar, and that is celebrated through Iran, Afghanistan, Turkey, and Central Asia. This is a 13-day filled celebration with food and fun, and weeks before, people start the processing of cleaning their houses, or shaking the house as they call it. This brings in renewal and releases the stagnancy of winter. This is when they do all their deep cleaning. They give away or like donate all of the items that they don't want to keep in their house, and like the things they don't want to bring into the new year, which I thought was a beautiful, beautiful practice. We have that spring cleaning kind of like colloquially, but like having it ingrained into a whole festival was a beautiful way to kind of start their new year off fresh. One of the most interesting parts that I find in Nowruz is that they have something set up called the Haft Scene Table, and it's a symbolic arrangement of 7 different items that start with the Persian letter S. Each item represents a different aspect of life and renewal to kind of celebrate this new spring energy. So first we have sprouted wheat, lentils, or barley, symbolizing growth and rebirth. Then we have dried olister fruit, representing love and wisdom. Then we have garlic, symbolizing health and protection. Apples, symbolizing beauty and good health. A sweet wheat pudding, symbolizing strength and prosperity. Vinegar, representing patience and wisdom. And sumac, representing the sun and the triumph of light over dark. There are some other items placed on these tables as well that have different symbolism. So we have a mirror symbolizing reflection, candles symbolizing light and happiness, decorated eggs symbolizing fertility, coins representing wealth, and a bowl of goldfish symbolizing life and movement. There's also normally a book of poetry or the Quran that is placed on the table to help bring in blessings for the new year. Other activities that take place during this 13-day fun-filled festival is jumping over fires. We actually see that in a lot of different cultures of jumping over a fire to cleanse and bring renewal into this new time. They also do gift exchanges. It from my research, it looks like different days are gift exchange for different people. So you have like your immediate family, your extended family, your community, and you are exchanging gifts as a way of blessing each other and bringing in this new good fortune into the new year. And then there's also a lot of picnics, spending a lot of time outside with this spring weather, dancing and music. So it is a big, big 13-day celebration. And like I said, weeks before they start the cleaning and shaking of the house. So it is a big deal. And we see a lot of things that we have also in our own Western culture, where we have, the spring cleaning, having items that represent different things, like the eggs come up pretty commonly over here. And then I love the idea of exchanging gifts. I thought that was really, really cute, and I kind of want to start that. Also, during the spring equinox time, over in Japan, we have a 7-day festival called Haru no Higan. And this was originally a Shinto holiday, but it shifted to be a national secular holiday when they did the separation of church and state. And this festival is primarily focused on the ancestors, and they would go to clean the grave sites, leave them offerings. This is also the start of cherry blossom season, which we know is very important in Japan. And so there's lots of picnics outside, cleaning the house, eating lots of sweets and sharing sweets with each other. This is also a time where they honor the past emperors, and there are some other Buddhist festivals that align with the same time as well, where it's giving respect, honoring the dead, and celebrating this new vibrant energy that we have in the living world. Through the rest of the world, we also have a few different landmarks that line up with the sun of the spring equinox, like the El Castillo Temple in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. We also have some different spots in Ireland and in England, where the sun aligns perfectly to light up different grave markers or things like that. And then we have in Germanic traditions, we have Ostara, or um, celebrating the goddess Oster or Ostara, depending on how you pronounce it and where you're from. But these are different interpretations of Bridget or Freya, these kinds of fertility, hearth-based goddesses that were honored during this time as well. And this is primarily where we get a lot of those symbols that we see in our modern culture around like eggs and hairs and dyeing eggs and having little bunnies everywhere, comes from this kind of celebrating these ancient goddesses. While much of what we associate with Ostara comes from later interpretations, the symbolism remains really powerful, where we see the eggs, the hairs, and the rising sun as emblems of new life. We also see different celebrations like jumping over fires and planting seeds, blessing your gardens, giving offerings to the land or to the agricultural deities to help bless the land as we start moving into a more fruitful time. When we start looking at the spring equinox kind of outside of religions, we see that in agrarian cultures, the spring equinox marked the start of planting season. And so this is the time that you start to prepare your soil, you bless your seeds. It wasn't abstract spirituality, it was survival. The equinox meant that it was the time to begin again and time to start reworking the land after your break in winter. Now, this last tradition that I want to go talk about is technically not around the spring equinox, but this is a tradition in Switzerland that takes place on the third Monday of April, and this is how they mark the start of their spring. So I wanted to mention it because it's still a spring tradition. So this is primarily in Zurich, and they make a giant snowman effigy called a boke. Um, that embodies winter. This is kind of like where you get like the boogeyman. So this is like a winter boogeyman kind of situation where they have a giant big snowman body, and then they stuff its head filled with explosives. Now the body is not made of snow, it's like cotton or whatever, and then its head is made of explosives. And they use this to figure out what kind of summer is coming about here soon. So the quicker the explosion, It promises a warm and sunny summer, and a drawn out, slow burning indicates a cold and rainy one. Now, it's really interesting as they record how long it takes each year, and there is a wide range. So, the shortest time on record is from 1974, and that was 5 minutes and 7 seconds. But the longest was from 2023, and that was 57 minutes. So it could go up fast or take a long time. But I thought that was a really funny tradition and sounds so much fun. You can look up pictures and videos of it online. It's Boogg. Um, but if you just look up like winter or spring holiday in the Swiss city of Zurich, it will probably pop up. Um, so now we've covered a few different traditions throughout the world to kind of get a general idea, and you start seeing these patterns, right? There's a lot of fire, food, fun, celebrating with friends and family, and getting outside. Every single one was getting outside and doing something outside. So now let's talk about the herbs of the equinox. In traditional herbalism, spring has always been a time of gentle movement and mineral replenishment. We are coming out of winter where we are often dehydrated because we tend to not drink as much water when we are cold. Um, and we're not getting and we're sitting in like the recycled air. We're not getting outside as much. So we have a lot of stagnancy going on. We also have the heavier, denser foods. We're not getting as much sunlight. And so spring is this time where we can really lend a lot of replenishment and nourishment back into our bodies. And we see this beautifully mirrored in our early spring greens. I love how intelligent nature is. We see these early spring greens are filled with really dense amounts of nutrients. They're also really strong lymphatic movers, and our lymph is normally slower in the winter because, like I said, we're more sedentary, we're recycled air, we're eating heavier foods, we're not drinking enough water. We need more internal movement, right? So these spring plants are exactly what we need right coming out of winter. So the first plant that we're going to talk about is dandelion. Dandelion is wonderful for this time of year. It is a nice bitter. It is a good liver support. It's going to help move everything through our body effectively. And then we have the leaf and the root that we can work with. The leaf would be a wonderful addition to um, spring salads. And even though it's really bitter, you can balance it out with the right other greens and toppings and whatnot. And that root also makes for wonderful medicine. We see the root worked with a lot in bitter tinctures, but you can also work with dandelion root in teas to add a little bit of a bitter blend to it. And we also see dandelion root worked with as a um, caffeine alternative in terms of like a coffee alternative tea, like mixed with some chicory and burdock. And so we also get a little bit of energy, right? We're working to raise our energy and kind of match this spring energy. In terms of like story medicine and energetics, dandelion helps to remind us that we don't always have to wait for perfect conditions. Dandelion is going to pop up and start blooming anyways. We see that dandelion thrives in disturbed soil in areas that that it's not wanted typically, like in people's lawns. And so we can take kind of that message with us of not waiting until everything is perfectly aligned. Sometimes you just have to make that movement to get that momentum going. Then we have cleavers. Cleavers is a wonderful addition for lymphatic health specifically. Cleavers is really easy to work with as a tincture. That's how you'll normally work with it. It is a great clingy vine, and it's going to help support our lymphatic system so that our body can naturally detoxify and remain healthy, which is super important as the springtime is normally when we are starting to get sick as well. And so helping to support our natural detoxification systems will hopefully lend to us not getting sick. In terms of story medicine, Cleavers teaches us about healthy movement and release. So a lot of the times we get in these rigid structures of um, this is the workout plan that I'm doing. This is all, these are all the things on my plate. These are the things I have to check off my list all the time. And Cleavers helps to remind us that we need to find that balance and find what works for us. So sometimes that may be not sticking to your rigid workout routine and maybe going for a walk or a hike instead, or trying a new form of exercise. But also in terms of our energetics and our inner worlds, working to release things. So letting go of those expectations that others put on us, letting go of what no longer serves us. Spring is all about this renewal energy, and so kind of as you saw in some of the cultural celebrations earlier, this is a time to let go of what we don't want to bring forward into this new time of vitality. Then we have violet. Beautiful, beautiful violet. You can work with the violet leaves or the flowers. It's a beautiful heart opener and helping us to also another lymphatic supporter as well. Nice and moistening and helping to keep things cooled off, moving through our bodies. As the weather starts getting warmer, sometimes it kind of throws off our own constitutions. And so helping us to find that balance so that we're not getting overheated, we're not getting overworked, and we are staying in balance, which can be really hard during these transitional seasons. In terms of how to work with violets, you can work with the leaves or the flowers. Like I said, they make great additions to teas or salads. The violets are beautiful mixed in with little salads, and during the spring is when we normally start to pick up a little bit more of the fresh produce and having more fresh foods. So great additions there. You can also make tinctures as well to kind of get some of those benefits. In terms of story, violet reminds us to kind of bloom where we're planted and to work on our own things without getting distracted by the outside world. Violet to me is a very soft, quiet plant, but still showy. So instead of screaming from the rooftops like what you're working on and what's coming about, it's more of a quiet dedication to yourself where you're working on your own projects and you're letting everything else around you kind of handle itself, and you're not calling in a lot of extra attention. And then the last plant is chickweed. This is the plant that I probably work with the most in the spring. Um, well, probably pretty equal to violet, but chickweed is incredible. Chickweed is another wonderful lymphatic mover, and I particularly love working with chickweed in food. So making an herbal pesto, adding it to salads or sandwiches. It is delicious. It is kind of similar to an arugula where there's like a little bit of a spicy undertone to it. It's not as strong as arugula, but I will use it very similarly. And yeah, herbal pestos are probably the best way for you to start working with it, because then you get some of the other flavors as you're trying to get used to the bitters, the bitterness of like the fresh greens. So great bitter, great for your lymphatics, high in a lot of nutrients and tasty. So I love working with plants in food to kind of help layer it throughout my day, which also helps kind of shift that mindset of like honoring the vitality and joy and beautifulness of the land instead of just working with it as a medicine. And then looking into more of like the story medicine around chickweed. Chickweed reminds us that small actions matter. So the chickweed flowers are tiny, 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 and they give off a very small but mighty type energy, where we are reminded that small steps can compound into big actions, and you don't have to be this great leader that everyone is looking up to for you to make an impact, right? Chickweed is tiny. It is often overlooked, but can make this huge impact in our health. And so we can follow suit by embodying that same small but mighty type energy. So I hope that you find these spring grains. They are really, really common. You can find them in your yards, at your local parks. Some of them you can even find growing in the cracks at the local grocery store. So keep an eye out. Even just seeing these will help brighten your day as we're coming out of the dark browns and bare bones of winter, and we're starting to move into some more bright colors and vitality. These plants can give you a little bit of boost even just seeing them. Now, let's talk about how you can celebrate the spring equinox. So, there's a lot of different things. What I really like about the spring equinox is, yes, we have all of these big, loud festivals. I personally slow down during the spring equinox and celebrate it a little bit more just by myself. To me, it becomes a little bit more utilitarian where I am focusing more on garden prep and planning and cleansing my home, versus if you've listened to my summer solstice episode before, where it's a little bit more loud and vibrant and bringing in a whole community. So it really depends on what you want and what you want to bring in. So I'm just here to offer suggestions and to tell you what I personally do, which is not right or wrong. It's just my personal way of doing it. So it doesn't have to be elaborate, is really what I'm saying. It just needs to be intentional. So here's some different ideas. You can drink a cup of tea that is made from the plants growing seasonally. You can also work with plants that are growing seasonally. You can make foods with them, make teas with them, make medicine with them, make a tincture. Just work with some sort of plant that is growing currently. You can also make an energetic door wash or floor wash with these plants by just infusing them into vinegar or mixing them in a little bit with some water to kind of cleanse energetically and physically your space as you're going through your spring cleaning. You can decorate or bless an egg. Remember, the eggs are the symbolizing fertility, and so we have that fertility blessing of honoring this time of year where everything is coming back and growing more. So that could be the land, that could be with animals, that could be with you personally, however that works for you. You could start planting your seeds. You could start your seeds inside if you're here locally. I don't know about other growing places, but here in Tennessee, we shouldn't really start moving our plants outside, depending on what they are, until late April, early May. But this is the time that you could start planting your seeds inside or working on your garden in terms of planning. You can also go out and bless your garden. This is something that I like to do every year. I don't really clean up the garden until later in the season to give all of the critters as much time as possible. But this is the time that I will go and really give a lot of gratitude to my garden. Even all the plants that are died back or the plants that didn't do well, going in, thanking them for what they gave this last year, thinking about what I made with them, like the oxymel that I made at the end of the season, and the times that I got to eat sugar snap peas right out of the garden while I was working there, and to really hold space for the blessing of having a garden, and then just kind of giving it some more love energetically of giving it blessings of how you want it to look this next year, what you want to grow, how abundant you want it, and visualizing that and blessing that area that is going to grow your food and your medicine. You could also take this time to journal about balance and kind of the themes around the equinox. So, the equinox is when there is equal light and equal dark, as equal as we can get with the sun and nature variability. Um, but this is when you can kind of bring this inward as well. So, we're coming out of this deep winter, which is a lot of inward rooting and thinking, and now we can kind of move a little bit more into the action realm. But The equinox is not summer. Growth is still tender, the light is increasing, but the darkness is still present. So here are some journal prompt suggestions. What is beginning to stir in me? Where am I out of balance? What am I ready to plant? What still needs gentleness? This is a good time to be looking at your boundaries and your goals. Even though we are a few months into the Gregorian calendar, as you saw with the other celebrations throughout the rest of the year, this is really when we get that New Year energy. So you can kind of treat this time as a new year. You can reassess your goals. You can start making actions assigned to those goals and treat this as a fresh start. And then the last thing is that you can still celebrate with friends if that's how you want to celebrate. You can bring in friends and family and work with local produce, start making things with your fresh plants that you're finding outside, celebrate together, exchange ideas and dreams, and turn this into a New Year kind of celebration. But now we have a little bit more of that New Year energy and vitality flowing through naturally. So lots of different options. There's no one wrong way or right way. It's really what is unfolding in you. There is a season for rooting and a season for rising, and the equinox remind us that both are sacred. So as you start to move forward with this new energy and vitality that we have, I want to remind you to move slowly. Increase your energy slowly, still bring in a lot of that mindfulness and checking with your capacity that you experienced through winter. And then that way you can enjoy the abundance of spring without the burnout. So there we have the spring equinox episode. I hope that you found some new fun traditions to incorporate and that you get to truly embrace the vitality of spring. If you would like to find out more about my upcoming classes and offerings, you can find me at rootandwandercollective.com. I'll see you along the plant path.